Sorry about that. You could draw a line from the invasion of Iraq and the currency in the dollar, as we are led to believe that the dollar is crashing now, the dollar is crashing now. Under the Obama administration, the great socialist, it's crashing now. As I attended a meeting in Manhattan with the EU in the late 90s, it was being incepted, he said, the head of the EU, we hope someday to have the dollar trading, or the euro trading equivalent to the dollar. He got the gift from the $1.60. Who would ever believe just in a few short years it doubled? As the fallacy was created, as, oh, Europe, look at that mess over there. As they are suffering at a high rate, we are suffering at a low rate. As I could prove, like I said before, that 80% of all wealth was crushed in this country. I do it in that book. As my Kevin D. Blanch Weighed Wealth Index, as I weighed it against gold or oil, I have a whole set subject matrix. As I could prove, 80% of all wealth was destroyed in this country from the year 2000 to the year 2006. As let's talk about the inflation. And the reason of mouse numbers is would have been people go to jail, would have been gone to jail. As the Fed and the government wants to tell you that between 2000 and 2006, that the inflation rate, the PPI-CPA, was about 3% annualized. At 3% annualized over that time frame, what was the real number? Let's talk about it. What was the real number? The real number was 20 to 30%. Okay. We went from, in 2000, oil $12 a barrel to $160 a barrel. We went from gold, $225 an ounce, to $1,900 an ounce, $1,600, $1,500 an ounce. Silver, wheat, we can go on and on. Median price of a house, we can go on and on and on and on and on and on. As you had $100,000 in the market in 2000, these said equities. And let's be clear about that too, is the Dow is not a true thing. Because you say, oh, the Dow's 13,000 right now. Let's remember this. GM was taking out. As that index, they play games with it. These companies, if they start performing, they take them out and replace them with another. Does that help you? No. It's a propaganda machine for the indexes. As these fund managers play these games, as the Greenspan and the Federal Reserve played these games on us, as why was they keep, what is the Fed's role? The Fed role in inflation, what is the Fed's role? They have one role. One role is Greenspan kidnapped the Fed and turned it into the I radical Ayn Rand philosophical idealism, as Romney says. As Romney says, my favorite book's an L. Ron Hubbard. As I like to say, if Ayn Rand would make L. Ron Hubbard look like a sane person down to earth, she was a science fiction writer. He based his thesis as Wall Street took over America. And they had control of the political scene, and Greenspan, and Greenspan, and Greenspan and the Fed, as they drank the Kool-Aid. Why? What is their role? To control inflation. What is their tool? Interest rates. So, that dynamic ended in 2000. As the Cinderella syndrome in the 90s was raging, as stronger dollar markets raging, the best of Cinderella syndrome, big time. It ended. Inflation was starting to go up. So the Fed needs to aggressively raise rates like Volcker did, like it's always been done. Did they? No. They lowered rates. What happens when you lower rates when inflation is going on? Hyperinflation. As we had the massive, most biggest inflationary time in the history of the United States happen between 2003 and 2006. 2000 and 2006. Oil went to $160 a barrel. Gold, like I said, $1,500 an ounce, $1,600 an ounce. Medium house of a price. Everything went crazy because you got a lower rate. Why? Because if the rate would have went back up to where it should have been, 9, 10, 11, 12%, nobody would have put their money in the market. Why would they? Why would they risk with these vultures and these evil monsters as the dynamic was being exposed of Kenneth Lay, as Bush's mother-in-law got cheated out of that because Lay tipped off everybody, as Bush's mother-in-law owned a whole bunch of that stock. That's when the plaque I have, as that's when they were told the mouse numbers and white-collar crime was no longer illegal, it is encouraged. And they said, do whatever you want. We had the free market fairy tale. No regulation, no nothing. There were thousands of Madoffs exposed. They put down the gates and wouldn't let you out so they could freaking get their ducks in a row, as State Street did break the buck. What is breaking the buck? Breaking the buck means when they have so much money in the market, dollar for dollar, it has to be by law. Breaking the buck means fraud. That they didn't, and they all broke the buck. It was widely reported as a CNBC radical machine that they are become the mouthpiece for this. This was nothing more than the ripoff of the redistribution of wealth to the 1%. This is where freaking took part in earnest 2001, 2002, as your mind was on that word, oh, that mushroom's going to get you, as those guys stated NSA right across as they're building that here. You know, as they gave out Ben Laden's phone number, as the recount, as the lie was born, as Alito and Roberts, as he misread that to Obama. You think that was a Freudian slip? All the lie has snowballed. Anytime, Elijah, you were a little kid, you were taught by your scoutmaster, your teacher, your mentors, your uncles, your mom, your dad, everybody. Work hard, honesty, integrity, as we broke all that down. As you work hard, honesty, integrity fell. As we turned into the liar, cheating nation. Why not? It was done right from the top, all the way across the board. White-collar crime, as people used the word hedge fund when they didn't know what hedge fund. Southwick, right here, as I attended the meeting right here in 2000, the dean invited me. Went to the luncheon. I looked right at him. I says, you're a hedge fund, a REIT hedge fund. What derivative market are you hedging from? There's only 4 of them. You could tell he didn't know what a derivative was. If the person does not know what a derivative and where they're going is, and they call themselves a hedge fund, that's what hedge funds do. Hedge. High dividend yield stock, buy the derivative underneath it, and you can guarantee the rate of return. The rate of return is guaranteed. It can be guaranteed, only to its limits. That is a whole other lecture of mine, folks. As this dynamic happened from 2000 to 2006, as inflation, as we want to talk about it now, let's talk about it now, why high dividend yield stocks are so powerful now. Let's talk about it. What was the market in 2008, 2009? As Glenn Beck, the radical, I used to be all messed up on the Lord, him and George Bush. Now, I used to be all messed up on the dope and the alcohol. Now I'm all messed up on the Lord. The market's going to crash. It's going to 3,000. Kramer, the mouthpieces. Oh, it's going to crash. It's going to crash. Well, it already crashed. That's when it was 6,500. As Mark Haynes called the bottom. The only thing he ever did right, who's dead now, and Aaron Burnett, who takes over at CNN. There's another thing, the CNN dynamics, seriously, as she goes down there and protects the 1%. Because she thinks she's an elitist when she's not an elitist. So they use those puppets for what they are, and they fall for it. Oh, we'll make you famous and throw you a little bone and think you are one of us when they laugh at you. Just like McClellan wrote his book, as they sit around the Situation Room, Cheney, Bush, and McClellan, they sit around the Situation, you believe these religious freaks, and made fun of them. Read his book if you don't believe me. As this dynamic, so the market 6,500 in 2009. 15,000. Apple, as you guys know, right on this very board, as I says here, buy these right before I got cancer. Buy the 580 Aprils. Why? Why? As Kramer was screaming, get out. As people were screaming out, scram back on us, a half white man's president of the Dallas crash and $3,000 a dollar. When the dollar, what was the dollar then? What was the dollar 3.5 years ago? $1.60. It's $1.40. Okay? Why have jobs now come back? Jobs can't come back. They will never come back until we have protectionism taken over. That's PG. Oh yeah, go ahead. Until protectionism ends. When it ends, the jobs will come back. So what is it now? We have the dollar, what, $1.40? Everybody says Europe's worse than us. If Europe's worse than us, why is the dollar so $1.40? They're suffering at a high level. We're suffering at a horrible level here. We're suffering as 80% of all wealth has been destroyed as we can take. As good economists weight wealth. They take gold, oil, whatever, and they weight it. They weight it. As you had $100,000 in 2000, how much education, how much car, how much house, how much gold, how much oil, how much food, how much anything could it buy? How much does it buy now? That's what inflation is. That is what causes economic turmoil. That's what led up to World War I, led up to II, is the hyperinflation as your masses become distraught. As hyperinflation impoverishes your people. It impoverishes everyone except unless you have so much money that it doesn't matter, which is such a very few. That's when inflation happened. That's when it happened. It raged, the hyperinflation of all time, as Greenspan was lowering rates. And I can get into what Greenspan caused a lot of the problem in Europe too, because of a carry trade. What is a carry trade? Putting down the gate, carry trade, window dressing, arbitrages. Folks, as you want to dive into the derivative market, finance, religion, politics, economics are not religion. They're not a 10-cent sack bite. And they are big fish eat little fish. As you incorporated them all together, finance is finance, economics is economics, religion is religion. They're separate. They're separate. And they all take dynamics, and they all take thinking, and they all take broad knowledge. And the machine has tricked you and fooled you. Apple, as I 2 years ago bought my portfolio and had guys with $10,000 bets right here. This is buy Apple, buy IBM, for the derivative, for the derivative. Why derivative? high dividend yield stocks so powerful with the derivative? Because a CEO knows this. If he declares a dividend and then backtracks on it, that equity will be destroyed for a lot of set of reasons, and rightfully so. One, pension funds, school districts, roads, municipalities all tie into them. By law, a lot of them cannot buy unless they're a dividend. Why? Because they know once you declare a dividend, you get the chance of you not paying a dividend, going back. So CEOs don't declare a dividend until they're so powerfully rich. So let's think about this. As you're a corporation in America, you're in China. As Steve Chinese Jobs, as Apple has been accused of violating Chinese labor laws. Now there's an oxymoron, Chinese labor laws. Let's talk about that. So your component to labor is zero. As you have to train the very people that take your jobs and send them over there. Okay, as GM goes bankrupt and is pulled out of the Dow, by the way, and there's another scam, as these GM came out of that, did that help you? No, it's a propaganda machine for the indexes. It's a Wall Street propaganda lie. Okay, so they have no labor. That pretty well is in Indonesia, they don't even pay their people anything. So they're at zero. Okay, the name GM, does GM make anything here? Very little. Do they employ anybody here? No, very little. Do they pay any taxes here? None. So how can they not make money? Even when CEOs making $400 million, they're still making huge amounts of money. So what does the Dow do? The Dow's 13,000. Look what the Nasdaq. Look what these markets have done in 3 years. Why? Why? Because what I just said. If you're a corporation, you are so empowered in this country. It is unbelievable. Well, not in this country. What am I saying? GM, Caterpillar, they're not American companies. There's nothing American about them. You don't pay any taxes. And the far right-wing radical machine, the Rupert machine, is indoctrinated and tricked people into wedge issues. And they've tricked people. Well, so is CNN, so is all media. Corporate media, you know, it's on both sides. And the left is as much to blame as the right. Because they get all hot button and wedge issued into these dynamics. As I had a student right here in this very lecture one day get into it with me and talk about, oh, well, all government programs are bad. You know, as you don't even know how to spell socialism. He's a socialist, give me a break. Is he playing chess or checkers? He's playing Monopoly, just like the rest of them are playing Monopoly. This student, this is the #1 MBA student undergraduate program in America for years and years, right here. Not anymore. This is how downhill it went last year. Well, they're all programmed. Look at the post office. I says, oh, so all government, you cannot pick and choose the redistribution of wealth. So I says, all government program. What about the Marines? What about the Air Force? What are the Navy? They're all terrible. What about? Whoa, 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 whoa. Why are you here? I tell them, why are you here? This is a state-funded university. This is a state college. This is federally funded massively. Why aren't you at BYU, at a private institution? There's the fallacy. As we want to pick and choose our arguments. You know, the dynamic is they've thrown wedges. The left is just as guilty as the right, as they've thrown them in on you. Sexuality, guns, gold, the flag, and wrap you up and fool you so they can keep it just the way it is. As we don't want to talk about the real dynamic. As the Fed mousing numbers through 2002, as our mind was on that war, as our mind was on those ridiculous wars, as again, CNN will not ask the hard questions, Fox News, ABC, NBC, CBS, you know, BBC, San Francisco Chronicle, LA Times, New York Times, Washington Post, none of them, pathetic reporting, because that's what journalism, just like the rest, because cordial conversations are dangerous, passionate, intelligent arguments get results, that is mine. And there's the problem. To raise your voice in a courtroom, to raise your voice, they'll taser you because they have dummied you down and feminized the American public. And that's why. So we just sit back and accept. I heard this. Glenn Beck said the market's melting down, so I'm sold my Dow at 7,000. I'm going to buy gold. Nice move, huh? We see what the markets have done. And the dollar's gotten strength, but jobs will never come back, as it has empowered the 1% as high dividend yield stocks. There's the story of the 1980 to the present. As your 401k, as you feed these guys, and there is no accountability. That is the dynamic. That is the dynamic. The baby boomer wants it all. They want it easy. They want it with no knowledge. They want it with no understanding. They want it with no education. And academia is falling for it too. As somebody will take a chance on me. As I walk this walk, as I am not a commentary anymore, I'm a documentary, a walking, living, breathing documentary. As that is what I'm up to. As I'm trying to reorganize my life and get my path, build my body back up, as I've come through those hard rounds of chemo. As I have lived the tale, and I will live the tale. I have lived to tell the tale, and I will tell the tale. And we'll keep this going on the finance end, as we'll talk about this, folks. As you want to talk about politics, economics, socioeconomics, your money. They're hard subjects. They're tough subjects. To you young people, Learn them, understand them. Don't buy into the CNBC machine. Don't buy into the corporate media machine. Find ways to learn. The internet, YouTube, there is so much information. It is the great information era that we live in. And you can understand these, and you can get these dynamics into your mind as window dressing. What is it? Putting down the gate. What is it? Arbitrages. What are they? As Kaiser come up with that most brilliant, oh, I love that. I love that. The Jerry Sandusky, Jamie Dimon arbitrage, that is brilliant. It is brilliant. It really is brilliant. And it defines America so much. Because we've become the white-collar crime capital of the world, of society. That's who we are. White-collar crime is not accepted, it is encouraged. As Southwick himself right here, the Mormon Madoff, I'm the one that exposed him. As he told me, well, I'm a REIT. What derivative market trading is, because the name hedge fund, people don't know what a hedge fund is. That's a whole other lecture I can get into, is how I can show you how you can guarantee a rate of return. High dividend on your stock, roll the put underneath it. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. As the low interest rate is a scam. It's an Alan Greenspan philosophical scam, as he is the real terrorist. Alan Greenspan, the greatest terrorist in American history, bar none. And that is not over top. What has happened in this country has been catastrophic over the last, since 2000. We've turned into this massive country of lies in all ways. The free market fairy tales. Stay tuned.